Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're doing a product review of Evil Energy fuel filters. These are a low-cost fuel filter you can purchase on Amazon and probably other places. And in my opinion, I would not recommend anybody purchase these or run them on your car. If you have them on your car, I'd recommend removing them. We're going to go into a few things today. We're going to talk about why they're probably filter well, why they are dangerous, and why they're going to be restrictive. Okay, let's go over this. So I purchased two of these. I needed a 10 micron and a 100 micron, and unfortunately, even though it was advertised as being anodized, this is just bare aluminum. This is not anodized. Just for those that are curious, I have a multimeter right here. I will show you. So if I take this and touch it to the anodizing, nothing happens because anodizing is non-conductive. Now if I come up to this, you'll hear it beeping as I move this around. That's because it's not anodized. I thought it might be clear anodized because that is a thing, but it's not. So these are just unanodized. This is going to be a long-term problem in a corrosive fuel, so not good. So I ordered a third one. Didn't even return it, just ordered another one. This one came anodized. I was like, okay, we should be good to go. Now I noticed the fittings that came with these units. Check out the difference here. This is the fittings it came with. And I was like, okay, something's wrong. This is a 10 AN down here, so that's huge. But if you look, I'll try to get some lighting to where this really works. There's like a big flat spot. It shows up there nicely. That hole is too small. They left this huge flat on it. I'm going to put it next to a higher quality fitting, and you can really tell the difference in the hole size if we zoom in here. So this one on the right obviously has a much bigger hole going through it. It's going to flow a lot better. This is actually quite restrictive. In fact, there's even a step inside of it. When the lighting's right, yeah, you can see it there. Big old step. Now if we go to a higher quality unit, well, it has a step, but it's all machined nice and pretty. It's not like it's like a taper to a curve. It's really hard to get on camera because whatever, but this one is much higher quality. It's got a nice curve going to it, so that would flow way better on that side. And of course, this port is a lot bigger, so this is going to be flowing way better. They're both anodized. This one's kind of skimpy. You can see the fitting is shorter. The hex part's less, so it's more likely to strip. It's got less threads over here, more likely to strip, and it flows less. So there's really no redeeming quality on this fitting, other than it came with the part and it was cheap. Also came with low quality O-rings, just to top it off. Alright, let's get into the dangerous part. So these are advertised as being a -10 ORB. So size is 10, 10/16, 5/8, 0.625 inch diameter. The ORB stands for O-ring boss. So you've all probably heard of that. It's where you got straight threads with an O-ring and it threads in and seals. The O-ring does a sealing. There's like a shoulder that's machined. The O-ring seals on the shoulder. Bob's your uncle. Here's an example of a more quality part. This is an old Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. And I'm going to zoom in so this is clear. Let me grab a pointer real quick. Okay. So there's a chamfer. The chamfer allows the O-ring to get started. Then there's a straight bore. This is where the O-ring is going to sit and seal. And then, of course, you got your straight threads. Pretty simple. Chamfer, counter bore for the O-ring, threads to hold the fitting in. Not really rocket science. Let's compare what these guys did. This has a chamfer. That's it. There's nowhere for the O-ring. Same thing on this one. Arguably not even a chamfer. Hell, that isn't a chamfer. That's just a straight up thread. Yeah, it's just threads all the way. It's square. So really no chamfer, certainly no boss for an O-ring to go in. Let's go to the next one. That was this one. This one kind of has a chamfer. Sort of. But it doesn't have a spot for the O-ring. Then we go to this one. This one almost looks like it would work. It seems like there's a boss. Like at certain angles, if you look at it, it looks like there might be a little spot for an O-ring. If I turn it here, there's our thread start. This kind of looks like it would work, like they thought about putting a boss for the O-ring. But I tried it. I put an O-ring and I put a fitting, and I tightened it and tightened it and tightened it. And it never stops tightening. So what's happening is there's insufficient clearance for the O-ring. So there's this thing on an O-ring called squeeze. So the way O-rings work, just a kind of simple rundown on O-rings. Let's see, here's an example. This is the one that came out of that Aeromotive regulator. See how the O-ring's deformed a little bit? So what happened is this O-ring got squeezed when it was installed by Aeromotive. And so what happens when it squeezes it, that's what gives it the ability to hold a lot of pressure. So you need some squeeze on an O-ring. However, there has to be space for the O-ring. Like, you can't just completely go solid. You just want to squeeze it some. So what happens here is there's insufficient clearance, and when you try to thread the O-ring in, it has nowhere to go. There's nowhere for it to go. That can cause problems. It can cause the O-ring to get cut, sliced, and of course your fitting never shoulders. Now these fittings, O-ring Boss, are designed to shoulder. The O-ring is only doing the sealing. The actual shoulder here is supposed to thread in and hit, and when you torque it, you've got a metal on metal face, and that's what supplies the friction to keep it threaded in. Because the O-ring is going solid in these, it could vibrate loose because it's not actually shouldered, and it's just friction of an O-ring that's getting sliced that's offering the resistance to turning and running the fitting in. So it's just dangerous on every level. Even if the fittings didn't vibrate loose, they would very likely leak, especially under pressure. It's insane that they sell fuel stuff that doesn't have a Boss for an O-ring. It just blows my mind. So anyway, you can see here on this one, they have an O-ring in that as well. If you go to the can that it sits in, because this has an O-ring, what do you see? Pretty much you just see threads. Crazy. No shoulder. This one is put together. Here's this one. This one has a little bit of a shoulder. This one I was actually able to put together. It was not happy about it, and they did not put sufficient room for the O-ring, so the O-ring gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and it never really, you never get that metal-to-metal shoulder that you would expect. So this one, they actually did put a Boss, it's just not big enough. Now, remember how I talked about the O-ring is going to get cut because it's basically just running into the threads? Let's see if we can get this on camera. This is going to be hard to show. Let me, I'll bring you back if I can find it. Okay, this one you can kind of see it. I'll try to get this on camera. See the slice mark that's running kind of right above my thumb? And it's rolling like that? That's the thread cutting into this O-ring. So that's what I was talking about, where they just don't have sufficient clearance and the O-ring goes solid. What happens is the O-ring starts extruding itself into the thread because it has nowhere else to go. And it just rolls in, and what a stupid design. Anyway, my point is, I bought these filters anywhere from $30 to $40 a piece, and they came with fittings. So it just seemed like such a bargain. I was like, man, that's so great. And I actually took them all apart because I don't trust stuff like this. Whenever I buy a cheap product, I always kind of check them out and inspect. These are the filters. The filters actually seem fine, which is funny. Maybe they're not, but I ran flow test on these. They flow pretty good. Like, these are stainless steel. They got support rings to keep them from collapsing on the inside. It's got an O-ring seal. You know, the media's glued in all the way to seal it there. Really, the filters actually look fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem is the rest of it. It's just not safe. And of course, even if it was safe, it would not flow very good with these fittings. So I definitely don't recommend running this. Like I said, if you have any of these on your vehicle, I would phase them out and swap them for something a little safer, because the last thing you need is a high pressure fuel line to start spraying fuel everywhere due to a cut O-ring or a fitting backing out, all for, you know, this is silly. People figured out how to make fittings not leak a long time ago, and it blows my mind that they can't do something simple like cut a Boss for an O-ring. They just cut straight threads and call it a day. Blows my mind. Anyway, this was kind of frustrating, so I decided I'd film a video and show you guys, so hopefully y'all can learn. And just remember, whenever you're buying stuff, think about things like this. If you're going to buy something cheap, you need to inspect it. You need to know what to look for. Sometimes you can modify stuff and make it work. Sometimes you can't. In my case, I thought about trying to machine a Boss into these. But my problem was I cannot do anodizing. So even if I was able to machine the shoulder for the O-ring to seal, that aluminum, which is of course the O-ring, where the O-ring seals, it's obviously going to be wet with fuel, that area would not be anodized. So it would corrode. So to fix this, I would have to machine the grooves and send the parts off for anodizing. Just, you know, it's hopeless. You might as well just buy the proper parts, which is what we've done. We've ordered new filters from Aeromotive. All the Aeromotive stuff I've run in the past, I've had good luck with. Like, this regulator is 10 years old. Looks great. I don't see any corrosion in here. And the O-ring stuff seals. They've got chamfers. They've got a good shoulder for the O-ring. So their stuff seems solid. I've never had trouble, so I bought their filters as well. Anyway, just wanted to show you guys this. Hope you've enjoyed this, and until next time, y'all take it easy.